Only a month into their stay at Starlight, Amber and Lucky were already entertaining their first guest. A sickly man, he called himself Rod, and claimed to have come here to visit his old friend Harold. Harold was the projector operator that Amber's mother had spoke so fondly of. They told Rod about Harold's passing, and nonetheless Rod decided to stay, on the one hand to recuperate from his illness, on the other hand to help these two settle into their new home. He helped pull down the shutters on the windows, and those windows without shutters he boarded up. Amber swept the floors, mopped, organized the shelves, and cleared off the front counter of all debris. She and Lucky had thrown down sleeping bags. Nearby shelves boasted the items that they cherished most. For Lucky it was always Blamco mac and cheese and cram, and he always had that party hat. For Amber, it was pretty or endearing articles of clothing that she'd find lying about, flowers, the occasional cigarette, Nuka-Cola, and sugar bombs. As to Harold, though they had disposed of most of his body, they kept the skull. Lucky wanted to keep it, and it sat there the whole time that I lived there. He saw Harold as the caretaker of Starlight, and wanted Harold to continue to look after them long after his passing. This kind of creeped Amber out. She didn't want anybody watching her alive or dead. She enjoyed her privacy, especially when wanting to relieve herself, and to that end, Lucky carved out a commode under the collapsed overhang. Granted, it was just buckets and rags. He used junk to fill in the gaps. But when Rod showed up, Rod complimented it with proper walls. You see, Lucky wanted to do everything in his power to cater to Amber. He was growing increasingly fond of her. One could call it a childhood crush, but it persisted into adulthood. His greatest fear was that she would find a better boy or a better place to live. Speaking of living arrangements, they let Rod stay upstairs. He threw down his duffel bag there. Yeah, they never told him that he was sleeping on the mattress where they found Harold's body. They felt he didn't need to know that. He didn't spend a lot of time in the projection tower anyways. He spent the majority of his time out scavenging or hunting. And mostly on their behalf. Perhaps in retrospect, he shouldn't have done that. According to Lucky, he was frail when they met him, and his condition only worsened each day. Nonetheless, he did do some good hunting, and a lot of times the game was mole rat. Mole rat was the staple of their diet. Mole rat was life. The bones they could use as weapons, jewelry. The meat sustained them, the hides they used to make clothing. Now, a month in, they weren't wearing mole-hide clothing, but they would be soon enough. Rod kept looking for wells. It took him half a dozen tries, but he finally found one, and it was the closest place he tried. And so around that water pump, they used a melon, dug out some seeds, and planted a garden. Now, a month into this project, the garden had not yielded any melons, but the plants did start to flower, which Rod told them was a good sign. There was a lot they could learn from Rod. I mean, Lucky was in his mid-teens. Amber was only a few years his elder. They needed somebody to guide them. They were young, they were naive. But one thing they knew for sure is that they were lucky. They were optimistic, knowing that they had the capability to carve out their own kingdom in this place, especially with the help of someone handy like Rod. But it was not to be. It was just 2 weeks into his stay that Lucky found Rod's body. He had succumbed to his illness. Further evidence that adults are weak.